So let's call this the Revit tip series on selection. And let's go ahead and share a screen here. So as you get more things in your Revit model, you might want to know the fine points of how do we select items. So I've got a little bit of a script here. Let me turn it over. So the same, you remember that rule on AutoCAD, when you go right to left, it only selects the things that are in the box. And if you go left to right, it selects everything that touches the box. Remember when we did that? The same thing works in AutoCAD, right? So if we go right to left, oops, I got this on here. So if I go right to left, it only selects the things that are inside the box. So let's go up here and do it again. So it only got the things that were inside that box. Now, if I go left to right, it selected everything that the box crossed, including the floor, okay? So right to left, you got to have both ends of the item inside the box to select it. Left to right, anything you touch, it selects it. Okay, so that's point number one. That's just like AutoCAD works. Now, the other way of modifying our selections is when you click on it, it selects it. If you click on the next one, it forgets that you select the first one. But if you want to do like very precise selection, you could click left, click on it. Then if you hit the control key, see that little plus comes up? The plus lets you add items to your selection. Now, let's say I didn't want that garage wall. The shift key, the minus comes up, and the shift key lets me get rid of objects from my selection, okay? So we talked about the box, we talked about the shift and control key, but there's another thing that works with selection, which is if you hover over something and you hit tab, it can select like a chain of walls. So if I'm hovering over this and I hit tab, you'll notice it just selected a chain of the walls that were connected. Now, why it didn't do the entry, I don't know. So the other thing I'd like to talk about is selecting by face versus not. And that's this little button down here, select elements by face rather than the corner. So if you have this slat the wrong way, it's going to drive you bonkers. So when you have this, it's not letting you select items by clicking on the face. So there's a floor here. And if I click, I'm left clicking, I cannot click on that. But if I click on an edge of an item like a wall or a window, I can select it. Now watch what happens when I click on this. When this option is turned off, you must click the edge of a floor or wall or other element to select it. But now I've got it select by face. So now I just click there and it selected that floor. So if you're working on floors or a horizontal plane and you're having trouble selecting them, this is a very easy way of doing it. But you typically don't leave that button on because now I'm trying to draw a selection window here. The minute I start to click on that, it now is selecting that floor, and now it's starting to move the floor as I was drawing my box. So you got to be really cautious on that. The default is to have it, but if you ever do, what did I do? I must have moved when I was in there. I must have moved my stair opening over. So let me undo that. So now we got one other button down here that you might not know about. So this one allows you to drag an element without selecting it first. To avoid accidentally moving an element when you select this, disable this item. Okay, so what happens is if I left click on this, I can just hold the button down when I left click and move it instantly. Okay, now that can cause you some trouble sometimes. So I'm going to undo that because I didn't want to move it. So if you want to not drag it once you select it and actually have to select it and then hit the move command, you click this. And now when I hold that down and I try to drag it, it won't let me drag it, right? So I would have to select it and then hit the move command in order to move it. Okay, and obviously I didn't want to do that. Okay, so these little buttons that you may not have messed with before. They're super powerful. Now, this last one here is the filter. And this is really one of my favorite items here. So I'm looking at my drawing here, and I really, really, really do not like the fact that they put my window thing in this, my window tag in the center line, so that line from my dimension string is in the middle of my window tag. And that's happening all over here, right? So I'm going to just come in here and I'm going to move all these window tags over. Now I could select them all, but I'm going to show you a faster way to get them all selected. So if I draw a box and I'm going to cast a really wide net here, I've selected all that stuff. Now you can see here, there's a filter there, and then there's also a filter up here. I'll just use this one up here. So we've got 33 items selected. I can click on the check none, and then just click on my window tags and hit OK. And now it's selected all of those. And now if I want to move them, I just click here. And now they're all off. Or maybe I want to move them just a tiny bit more. Okay, so that's a really fast way. So this, once you learn the ins and outs of the selections, it'll just make you a lot more faster in your, more efficient in your drafting. So I'm going to stop my video here.